Hello, welcome back. My name is Gower. There's been some really fascinating research about something called cognitive bias. I call it conscious bias because as a hypnotherapist I'm often talking about conscious awareness and unconscious awareness. So this research was saying that cognitive bias is the fact that we take in information, that first lot of information, and that sticks in our mind. The good example that they gave was they asked a series of students which European country had the worst case of COVID, and they all answered Italy, which was incorrect because it was actually Montenegro. But Italy, at the beginning, the media said that they had the worst cases of COVID. So it just shows you that even though following information gives us a different result, we stick with that first result that we've taken in cognitively. When you think about certainly our government as well, that cognitive bias then of the scare stories and all the tactics that they use, and even now where things are changing and things are turning around, people still are remembering that first bit of information, and particularly by that wonderful scientist from the London Tropical School of Medicine who said that there were going to be 500,000 deaths and it was going to be this and it was going to be that. It was totally untrue, and actually found out that lots of models that he'd used by computer previously, nothing to do with COVID but other things, they were wrong as well. But people still thought about what was said at that time, and it is in that cognitive part of their mind. If you think of, for instance, maybe you move in somewhere and a nice neighbour comes over and greets you nicely and then says, you want to watch those people next door to you because they've done this and they've done that. So we've taken in that conscious bias against that person. Now we might say, well, I'll make my own mind up when I meet them and see what they say, but it will still be there. So you'll meet these so-called neighbours who are not very good, and it's at the back of your mind that someone else has said this about them. So that's what conscious bias is, that part of our brain that takes in that information, keeps it there, and it takes a long time to overwrite that. So even though we have more information that would really override that first bit of information, then unfortunately it takes a long time to change that. So think about the things that you've had a conscious bias against, and then suddenly you've been given different information. Have you quickly changed your mind about that first piece of information, or are you still stuck with that? We've got good examples of what's going on in the news and the media at the moment of how the government is running the country and what is really happening out there. Are we now saying, yeah, not fit for purpose, got to go, or are still some people saying, yeah, but it's better the devil you know, we might as well stick with that? Well, maybe that's a conscious bias that you thought that that was the right thing to do at that particular time. But you've got time to reassess that and take in more information, even though it might take a little bit of time. Think about a conscious bias that you have, maybe even about therapy. Sometimes people have come and said, oh, I decided hypnotherapy was going to be the right thing for me because I'd read a lot about it, and I thought, it's just nice to experience anyway, lovely relaxation. But my brother or my sister or my father or mother or my boss at work said, oh, you don't want to do that. Oh no, that's all mumbo jumbo. Well, that's probably their own conscious bias, because maybe somebody has told them about it, or maybe they've watched some kind of program on the TV which is maybe using hypnosis for titillation, because that's what Paul McKenna used to do years ago. He went on stage, he was a hypnotist, he was not a hypnotherapist. So therefore you need to reassess again and think to yourself, well, maybe I'll find out for myself, see what is right. It's very difficult with the media though, that pumps out all this so-called information that we start to believe might be true. The only way that you can find out is doing your own research, finding out what is right for you and changing some of that conscious bias.